A few years back, I released a video on the financial viability of Xbox Game Pass and why it made sense as a business model. In that video, I discussed comments espoused by Phil Spencer, head of all things Xbox, whom I personally refer to as Mr. Xbox, where he explained, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Game Pass was a boon for Xbox because it encouraged players to engage with the platform more so than they otherwise would have, even with the fact that Game Pass caused a reduction in overall sales numbers for the titles featured on its service. And as far as explanations go, I went along with it. I mean, who am I to disagree with the guy who runs Xbox? He obviously has to know more than me, right? A corporate executive would never lie to the public. Of course, it now appears that Phil Spencer may have lied to the public. As many of you folks know, because you're terminally online, my condolences to your mental psyche, Microsoft recently jacked up Game Pass's price by a whopping 50% and potentially proving that Game Pass is a financial loser for both Microsoft and the industry at large. And given all of that, I figured now was the appropriate time to glance back at my previous video on Xbox Game Pass and go, wow, I got that really fucking wrong. Hell, someone even recently commented on that video just a few weeks ago saying this aged so poorly, which they are correct. It did. It's a take that has brought great shame to the biological Riley household, as well as one that has wreaked havoc on my credit score. If I ever need to get an apartment, I am royally fucked. Now, before we broach the topic of me being a fuck-up, let me just state Xbox Game Pass's original appeal. See, often touted as the Netflix for games, Xbox Game Pass offered a pretty damn good deal for customers. For $20 a month, a subscriber could download games from a large catalog of titles, including Xbox exclusives and first-party games on day one, which was very enticing as far as video game deals go, considering that games this generation cost $70, with future prices most likely increasing to $80 and possibly relinquishing your soul to Mephisto. A soul well spent if Microsoft ever decides to release a new Viva Pinata. So yes, Xbox Game Pass offered great value for customers, giving players a lot of bang for their respective buck. No relation. However, many developers sounded the alarm on Xbox Game Pass and have stated publicly their overall dissatisfaction with the service over the last few years. Because while yes, they acknowledge that the service was a great deal for customers, they believed the long-term effects of its business model were potentially corrosive. The most notable and prophetic argument came just a few months ago from Arcane Studios founder Rafael Colantonio, though to note he hasn't been with the company for more than half a decade. In various posts and responses on the Nazi website formerly known as Twitter, Colantonio described Game Pass's business model as being unsustainable and that Game Pass can't coexist with other models, stating that they'll either kill everyone else or give up. In other words, Colantonio's comments refer to Microsoft's overall expenditures, like the money they've chucked at third-party developers and publishers of all sizes to put their games on Game Pass, the amount of excess cash they utilize to acquire major third-party developers and publishers like Activision Blizzard and ZeniMax, i.e. the parent company of Bethesda. There's the increasing cost of AAA game development, and that's even before broaching the tough economic environment with the tariffs, inflation, and such. And of course, how Xbox Game Pass routinely cannibalizes the sales of first-party Xbox titles. You know, because subscribing to Game Pass means that gamers will be purchasing fewer games, considering that first-party Xbox titles generally release day and date on Game Pass as well. Because despite what my prior video with the shitty thumbnail says, the business model actually doesn't make a lot of sense, meaning that Colantonio's points about Game Pass unsustainability had merit. And it looks like the chickens have finally come home to roost. In recent weeks, Microsoft has increased the price of Xbox Game Pass, upping the cost from $20 all the way to $30, ensuring that the service is far less economically advantageous for the customer than it was before. That's just how numbers work. Because at that rate, customers may as well just buy their games, because it's doubtful that many can maximize any sort of value out of the service, considering that that most single-player games are bigger and longer than ever before, phrasing, and multiplayer games are live services, both titles which are major time sinks. And while sure, Game Pass now features two other less expensive tiers, the $30 tier has the equivalent value of what was the $20 deal before the price change, even with how the new $30 Ultimate tier has a few added benefits, like more games from Ubisoft and such, but that doesn't negate the problem of how Game Pass's new $30 price tag remains a bad value for customers, mostly because of just how much time many of these games take to play, meaning that this is a true price increase that eliminates the necessity for the service, as well as one that removes the DLC discount as well, by the way. Don't think I forgot that one. The response from gamers, who are always a very rational and mild-mannered bunch, has been swift. No relation. In most instances, gamers will complain about anything, like the existence of protagonists that are people of color, LGBTQ folks, the graphics regarding puddles and Spider-Man, the mere existence of women, and the mere existence of women with smaller titty boo-boos are often enough to warrant the wrath of the gamer. If anything, it's just a regular occurrence that the neckbeard battalion will get offended by even the most minor of perceived infractions, often supported by the content promoted on YouTube's algorithm. Hell, gamers pissing and moaning is the most lucrative genre of gaming content on this miserable hell site. May she live forever. Meaning that gamers griping about everything is just a standard expectation. It's not notable in the slightest. But when there actually is a valid reason for gamer rage, or at the very least gamer disgruntlement, then you know that the company and or individual committing that said infraction is deep in the shit, which is where Microsoft is at the current moment. In fact, numerous gamers canceled their Game Pass subscriptions because mathematically the deal just isn't very good anymore. That's all even before how pundits, customers, and members of the industry are really starting to question Microsoft's hardware strategy, especially considering the company's present software strategy. Because with Microsoft releasing Xbox titles on PC and on rival platforms owned by Nintendo and PlayStation, this does overall reduce reasons to buy an Xbox console now and in the future. Because Xbox Game Pass was the only selling point of value that Xbox had over its competition. And now with that said value disappearing faster than the American Constitution, we're all left wondering, what is the point of buying an Xbox anymore? Even to the point that there has been plenty of speculation and even rumors that Microsoft and Xbox might drop out of the console wars, which on the one hand, Microsoft has denied, but on the other hand, Microsoft would never ever lie, right? Furthermore, the recent Xbox Game Pass debacle has also motivated me to further reappraise Phil Spencer's decade-plus stewardship of the Xbox brand, an opinion that is increasingly becoming negative, with the multiple rounds of layoffs at the developers Microsoft acquired, as well as the earlier stated devaluing the necessity of an Xbox console through the company's multi-platform software release strategy, and by neutering the value of Xbox Game Pass for the customer. I can't help but believe that Team Xbox is lacking a coherent direction, a direction that often feels like one step forward, two steps shot in the dick. They just don't seem to know what they're doing right now. Hell, while editing this video, Microsoft may have even backtracked a little bit on the Game Pass price increase, at least temporarily, after many current Game Pass subscribers reportedly received emails saying that when it came to their current subscription cost, the price won't increase in their region. Regardless, Xbox's leadership under Phil Spencer feels directionless, because despite attaining the rank of Xbox Master, Spencer doesn't have much to show for his work when it comes to this console generation, or at the very least giving potential customers a reason to purchase an Xbox console, which is irritating because the rival over at Sony is fairly vulnerable given that Sony completely botched its software strategy for the PlayStation 5. See the amount of canceled or failed live services, or the treasure trove of great brand name games that they are actively ignoring. Because like, if Xbox represented competent competition, they could have easily retaken some lost ground. But unfortunately, through its actions, Xbox has repeatedly refused to take advantage of Sony's current weakened state, meaning that Microsoft and Xbox just feel really inept at the moment. And the Xbox Game Pass price increase is just the latest symptom of that. It's yet another sign that Xbox has lost its way.